Okay, great. Well, pleased to be joined by Aleesha Webb, president of Village Bank, which manages more than $300 million in assets in its branches in Blaine, Ramsey, East Bethel, and St. Francis. Is that correct?
It is correct. We're actually just under 400 million in assets now. And
Wow.
yeah, so we've grown quite a bit over the last year and a half.
So you're growing as we speak. I have that's good to hear. So, um, well, thank you for joining us, Leisha. I was wondering if you could start out by just talking a little bit about how you got started in banking. I understand it's kind of a family business that you have with your father involved in banking. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. So my father, Don Kveton, founded the bank almost 29 years ago. He chartered out of St. Francis, Minnesota, where we still have a location today, and some of my very favorite villagers. We have grown to just under 400 million in assets with the four other locations, including an operations center. So my dad's still is chairman of the board, the CEO of the bank, and owns 100% of the stock in the bank. And so it's, when we say it's family, it's a very unique family situation. But I think, it's funny when I think back to like having an office or having a computer or anything now, because, growing up, my dad's always been an entrepreneur and he really instilled that in us. And, whether we were picking up cigarette butts and paper from parking lots with real estate that he owned, or I was washing dishes on a Friday night in a restaurant and then, watching cartoons and eating pizza once I was done washing dishes after, a happy hour, supper hour, as we used to call it. We've always been in the family business. So as I look to, having an office now in this, quote unquote fancy title, it's just kind of what we've always done. It's entrepreneurship, it's supporting Main Street, and it's just being part of the family and doing your part in the family. And I'd have to say this is probably the best gig out of all of those. Maybe depends on the day a little bit, but so far best gig.
Great. So did you just I guess just sounds like you got started just from the ground up and really got a taste of all different levels of this business. Is that right?
So, yeah, absolutely. So I was a teller at the bank, and that's why I am so grateful for my tellers today. I would say that probably one of the worst tellers ever, because my drawer was always 6 cents off or 17 cents off, because I was so excited to sell that car loan or sell that certificate of deposit, and maybe wasn't focused enough on the details that I needed to excel behind the teller line. And still to this day, Elaine, who trained me in and said, "You are not a teller, my dear, you need to go sell car loans," is still a villager today. She works in our operations center. I got started relationship banking, um, commercial lending, helping to run a location, etc. And really was able to hone in on my niches and understand the importance of relationship management, the importance of working on commercial banking teams, the importance of treasury management, the importance of having just a really strong culture and living that culture through your values. And so after being gone from the bank for about a decade, I had the opportunity to come back home and work alongside my father and work alongside the great villagers that we have at Village Bank today. And I'm grateful for the experiences inside of the bank, because I think it's taught me a lot about how much I appreciate our villagers that support the community and Main Street. I'm also very grateful for the opportunities that I had outside the bank, because I knew I had to earn it, I knew I had to own it, and I knew I had to I knew what I wanted to bring back home, right? I got to see the best and maybe what I didn't think was the best, and really what I wanted to bring back home with me when I came home to Village. And I'll say it's always the people. That's always the culture. And so I feel like I've got a good base in banking from outside and inside. But I do think, as in any industry, there's still a lot to learn. And in order to be successful in any of these industries, you need to continue to learn.
Well, I think we had a little bit of a weak internet connection there, probably on my end for a while there. But you were talking a little bit about your career path, and could you fill in some of that again? What kind of where you went? You started at Village Bank, and then you went to a different direction for a while, and then came back. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I can start over there. So, yeah, I started my banking career at Village Bank. I was a teller. I worked behind the teller line. Drawer was always a little off because I love the business development piece of it. I love the relationship management piece, the next car loan, the next CD. And I worked my way up to being open up deposit accounts for consumers and our commercial clients, and then made my way into commercial lending, which I loved. Helped manage the Ramsey location as well as the Blaine location. And then I realized, although I loved being Don's daughter, I realized I had to go make sure for myself that I wasn't only Don's daughter. So I was lucky enough to leave the bank for about a decade and work for two other women in banking, two other banks in the Twin Cities, both ran by female presidents, and got to learn what the skill set I wanted to bring back home and what maybe didn't work in banking and what wasn't going to work for our village. Learned a lot about treasury management, commercial lending, specifically professional service lending, was able to learn the importance of a team and becoming an expert in certain types of banking. Also just, I think the biggest lesson though, and again, this is those soft skills of anything you do in life, is how important the people are, and how if you're going to really build a strong culture, a strong village in our case, that we always put the people first and that we really always lead with our values and make those the most important thing. So, I was lucky enough to really work for some great women, Kate Kelly being one of them that is now running PNC, and really appreciated the team that she brought on and she brought me on to be a part of. And I would say from there, I did my MBA at St. Thomas, met great people in the industry, as well as graduate school of banking at Madison, and really learned, because again, you got to always learn. I don't care if you got the president position or whatever position it is on that org chart, it's always learning. And graduate school of banking did a great job in teaching me, educating me in all facets of the bank without knowing I'm never going to be a CFO, but I know what questions to ask the CFO, right? And I would say that combination of experience and education has what's really brought me back to the village and given me that opportunity to have this role. And I say that very humbly, opportunity to be the president and the opportunity to help create the great culture that we have at Village Bank today.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was going to ask you about that. It sounds like you do some mentoring now, and it sounds like you've benefited from mentors previously earlier in your career. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more expand on some of your influences, both within your family and outside the family. How helpful has that been to have those relationships?
Absolutely. Our first value at Village Bank is put relationships first, and that's my dad's favorite, Don's favorite, and I would say it's probably the most important one. I even just thought of that as you were asking that question, because I would never be where I am today with the chance to lead this team if I didn't have great people that I got to look up to and that paused enough and slowed down enough to help coach up and paused when I made a mistake and help pick me back up and teach me the right way to do it, and celebrated the wins, right? Because both are important, both are crucial. And so I would say first and foremost, my dad, right? He worked us hard growing up, cleaning booths, washing dishes, whatever it was. But looking back now, someone recently asked what's been the tools to success during COVID. It's been work ethic. I know how to work. Our team knows how to work together. And second, it's been patience, being patient enough to walk through what's going on, to let the vision play out and really celebrate the win, right? And so work ethic and patience, and I learned both of those from my dad. I'd say I think about walking into school banking on my very first day, and it's like 90% guys, and then there's like a couple women, me being one of them. But the very first class was taught by Terry Saber. And Terry Saber was with Whiffley for a long time. She's, sits on different boards of banks. She's this unicorn in banking. And her big piece was, again, that soft sell of banking. Like anyone can learn the balance sheet and income statement, but do you understand how to lead a culture? Do you understand how to make everyone important? Because when the pieces of the pie come together, that's the dessert, that's the present, that's the prize. And so I'd say I remember after my first day, they're walking up to Terry and saying, "I want to be just like you one day." And I'm different than she is, but she rings in my head all the time that we need a chief people person because people are the key ingredient, right? In our case, villagers are the key ingredient. I think my time away from the bank, Kate Kelly, who is now running PNC, and Kelly Elkin, who is now at Old National, two of my very, very favorite female bankers that really took me under their wing when, I was Don's daughter that had only worked at Village Bank. And, I was scared and they gave me an opportunity and they taught me how to be a professional commercial banker. They taught me a lot about culture and knowing your role and made me stick to that. And I really appreciated their time. I'd also say there's just this handful of women in banking that we're all at very successful banks today. We're all leading teams. We're competitors, some would say. But at any given day, we can reach out to each other for help. We can ask transparent questions. And it's this glue that we have together. They're at, I think of Jackie, I think of Gina, I think of Mary Jane, I think of all these great people in the Twin Cities that we can reach out to we can reach out to each other and bounce ideas off of each other. And that's important. Like that's so important as not just women in the financial industry, but it's also important as financial leaders that are seeing COVID for the first time. Seeing the protests and the riots for the first time, seeing interest rates be low for the first time, seeing different segments of our industries and saying, what's next? What does a restaurant look like? Hospitality look like? What do these industries look like going forward? And how can we make sure we have these safe, steady income streams to keep all of our employees going and Main Street, working? So, from that perspective, been very fortunate. But I'd also say it's so important to give back and never forget that, 20 minutes of your time on Zoom or a cup of coffee goes a long, long way. I've had the good fortune of, helping women that I've worked with find new positions that are right for them. I'm so proud. I think of Leanne Stessman at Park Bank. She's COO now, and she is just, watch out where she's going to go next, right? I'm also very fortunate that I have, I sit on obviously the senior leadership team, but I've got 3 other women on my senior leadership team. So we have 4 women and 4 men. Now that is not by design. The guys might say it is, but it's not. I'm fortunate enough that that's just how it played out because honestly, I just want the smartest people. I want the most creative people. I want the most innovative people. I want calculated risk takers. I want people that have a really, really big heart along with an appetite for risk to be on our senior leadership team. And that's, we've got 3 other great women and 4 other men on that team. And it works well. It does. It works, right? I don't know how, I know how it works. It works because we hired on our values. Whenever we're hiring, we're like, are they a villager? Do they put relationships first? Do they earn it? Do they own it? Do they want to build something special? And do they always do the right thing no matter how hard it is? Those are our 5 values, and that's what we hire on. And sometimes it's tough when we want to hire someone, but we know there's not a value there. On the other hand, always works out when you stick to your values.
Do you see, do you sense that a lot of progress has been made on closing the gender gap from going back to when you started in the industry, or maybe even when your dad started the bank, compared to now? And where do you think we're headed here? It sounds like certainly progress is being made.
Yeah, I feel like progress is being made, and then I'll talk to someone and they'll tell me their story, and I hate it. It's horrible. I just spoke to someone recently who shared with me she was the only female on the senior leadership team for the bank she used to work for, and now she's the only woman on the senior leadership team for the bank she works for today. And I was shocked because those are both very progressive banks. And I guess I just didn't know that. I didn't put two and two together. They're great community banks, but she's the only senior leader, and that surprised me. Um, I I think there's been progress made, but I don't think there's enough. Nothing gets me more than when you see banks that say we're 60% female, or we're 56% female employee base. Well, where are those women in that organization? Are they the decision makers? Are they the hiring managers? Do they have a say at the table? Are their voices heard when they're at that table? Are they respected, right? And I would say all those things for all of the great men that I work with today and tomorrow and yesterday. But I think since you asked the question specifically about women, it's more than just a number, right? It's more than just a number. It's not about, yep, it's 50-50. No, it's about whose decisions are heard, whose voices are heard, who gets to decide, make those big life-changing decisions. I can tell you something that I personally have been struggling with. It's been a gift, but it's also been difficult to realize is I've been grateful enough to find women that are great fits for our team and that are making a big impact for our villagers and for Main Street, for the community. But in doing that, you're also finding that as COVID hits and kids don't go back to school and there's challenges at home, a lot of times it would be me picking it up, right? It would be me figuring out how my girls are going to get homeschooled. It would be me figuring out how we're going to do this, right? And even when you've got a great spouse at home, even when you got the help, it's still that, I think, it's still that mom guilt, it's still that burden, it's still that I want involved, I need to be involved in my children's education and well-being during this time. And so that's my concern right now, is that I see a lot of women stepping back, not necessarily because work is making them step, like a layoff or something, but stepping back because they feel they need to, they have to, or they want to, because that's their role as a mother and a wife and part of that family. I get that. I understand it, right? I feel that too. I want to challenge all of us in leadership roles to say, how do we help find flexible schedules for those families, not just the moms, but the dads? How do we find flexible schedules? How do we support what they've got to do at home, knowing that they've always been an excellent employee and can help continue to grow whatever the organization is? I want to know, how do we move through this season and really continue to support those women that have earned their way up, support those dads that have earned their way up, and how do we get through this piece, whether it's 6 months or it's a year and a half, but how do we move through this time for all families and all of our employees? Because I think it will matter. I think you'll see employees become much more engaged, grateful, thankful. I think they'll be loyal. And I mean, when you say relationships first, that's the relationships that, I have with my villagers as well. It's not just the community, but it's the community members that have chosen to work at our bank.
Yeah, I think that's well said, and I think it's gender equity is important for everyone. I mean, I have three daughters, and I certainly want them to have every opportunity that anyone else has. And so, and you see it in the construction industry too. I've been covering the industry for a long time, and you hear stories about a woman construction company owner who comes into a meeting and they ask her to, hey, the guys say, hey, can you get me a cup of coffee? They think she's a secretary or something. And so I know there's a long ways to go in other industries as well. So,
Absolutely. But you know what, Brian? It's guys like you. Like I remember I worked with Gene Cross at Minnesota Bank and Trust. And it's like, how do I connect with Gene? Like Gene has hairless cats. I'm allergic to cats. He's got only boys. I'm not a boy. But we got to know each other. We got to appreciate each other's skill sets. And he got daughter-in-laws and he had to figure out how to connect because they weren't Gophers fans. And that's where we found our niche, right? Like that's where we found how he started to appreciate the skill sets that I brought. I appreciate his skill sets, and we figured it out. I mentioned Terry Saber has just, I mean, she's been a godsend, and her son is David Saber, who's running, Park State Bank right now. David is one of those guys that grew up with this excellent mom. So guess what? He gets it. Like he gets it. It's all equal, right? And there's no inequities there because it's the same. Are you smart? Are you a hard worker? Can you get the job done? And I think as we have more men who have these really great daughters, and we have more men who marry these really great women, and they get to work with a lot of great women, and they say, oh, wait a second, there's no difference. Like it's just who can get the job done most efficiently and really learn to support each other. That's where you'll start to see all of this stuff go to the wayside.
yeah. What can you talk about? Can you talk a little bit about your some of your volunteer activities? And it sounds like you mentor other um, women in the industry. And what can you say about that?
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm really fortunate. I'm on the board at Big Brothers Big Sisters of the Twin Cities, and I mean that organization. Talk about being in the moment right now with just everything going on in our community and our country at large. Michael Gore leads that organization. It's the 100-year anniversary for Big Brothers Big Sisters this year, and he has stepped up to the plate and really called out all of us on the board to say, what more can you do? Not just what can you do, but what more can you do? And I think being part of that organization and, realizing how fortunate we are. I mean, I live off of Highway 65, Central, that runs right downtown, and realizing how fortunate we are, and we're just like 10 miles up, not that far away, right? And just the distinct economic differences, the familiar differences, just the differences, and how we can continue to give back, whether it's financial education, whether it's financial resources and support, or whether it's just our time, right? And to help make really good decisions for the organization. So that's one place that I have, been a part of for over 4 years now, almost 5 years, and really saying mentoring is important. You got to have a role model in life, and how can you help with that, whether it's time, treasure, or talent. I also sit on the board at Modern Well, and I've been on that board since Julie Burton started Modern Well. It's an all-female workplace, and Julie has done a wonderful job making it a safe place for women to go, whether they're entrepreneurs or they're W-2 at a big publicly traded organization. There we've put together classes in conjunction with Julie in Modern Well, know your numbers, right? So we may have someone that wants to start a business, has never looked at an income statement or balance sheet. We walk through it line by line, and you can ask any question you want. We talk through what's a receivables list. We talk through what's a borrowing base. We talk through what's balance sheet. We talk through how do you build your personal credit up? How do you finally get to the place to separate your business and your personal, finances? We talk about why a good accountant's important, a good attorney's important. And, a lot of times I'm answering the same questions, but guess what? They're important questions. And it took me a long time to get it all right. We got to give back to these ladies so they feel confident to go out and start their own business, start their own side business even. And then, of course, at St. Thomas, a lot of mentoring at St. Thomas as women are coming out of the business school there or in the MBA program and looking to get into banking, and being really honest about what banking is, being really honest about what it can look like, how hard it is to get there, maybe what a good career path is, what does, a day look like, and what are the opportunities out there. So we've been doing a lot of, I do a lot of that. And I mean, honestly, just with customers, even as with a client earlier today whose daughter's going to be graduating, well, the industry she's graduating in, we just finance that type of business. So I said, hey, if she's ever looking, let me connect her when she gets home for an internship. Just a lot of that. How do we continue? And that's in pharmaceuticals, right? It's not even in banking, but it's how do we continue to say, how do we help you get there, right? Like, how are we your village and we help you get there? Because I wouldn't be, I would not be sitting in this seat without the great men and women that I've been able to work with over the years.
Well, congratulations on your success, and you've been generous with your time. I was wondering if there's anything you'd like to add before I let you go.
Thank you so much, Brian. I think the last thing I was thinking about this, there was a question about, some influence, what are great influences and stuff, and kind of keeping ideas fresh. And I would say I read every single day. Sometimes a page or two, sometimes it's a blog or two, constantly listening to podcasts. I listen to a lot of podcasts and read, not necessarily banking, but I read like a lot of different industries. And I love to listen to engineers. I love Peter Drucker from back in the day. That's a shout out to all my MBA friends. I like to listen to other industries and how other industries are marketing and branding and selling and hiring and building culture. Because we're a bank, we're a commodity. Money's a commodity. At the end of the day, it's our people and it's our brand. And I think it's really important, no matter what role you're in, that you're constantly learning, that the good people around you can tell you no, or they can tell you, I think you're wrong, and you actually listen and you let them win too. I can't tell you how important that is. So I guess like last piece would be keep reading, keep listening to podcasts, and keep knowing you're going to be wrong a lot, right?
Yeah. Well, that sounds great. I love reading and podcasts. So you're singing to the choir here.
We'll have to share our favorites one day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again for your time, Aleesha. It's been nice chatting with you, and stay in touch.
Oh, thanks, Brian. Thank you so much. And good luck to you and your family. I appreciate your time too.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, Brian. Bye-bye.
Bye.